Today we've got the hottest destroyer action anyone's ever seen since the last time I recorded all the moves in this live action adventure. So, if you're not a destroyer god, then make sure you go learn the ways before you continue. And it's been a while since we did a destroyer exclusive, but there is a Lost Ark segment every week in the Y Quiz podcast that I do every Sunday. But for today's video, I teed off on an evil clown and bonked his really creepy looking head in with the absolute hottest Rage Hammer build that you can even put together. And I did it at item level, so 1475. So on top of the build, I'll also be going over some clown tips to help you in your bonking journey. And just remember, my name's Claysthetics, and we're running right into it. And don't forget to like the video. It's the only way YouTube knows I exist. And lighting this off, we're going back outside to show off our biggest, baddest new move, Earth Wave. It's just a real shame that we don't get to use the move yet for Destroyer because it's not in the Western release of the game yet, because we actually didn't get the Korean class balance patch like we did with Fulton for Clown. Instead, they just didn't do anything for 3 months. But we'll talk about the move at least because it is really cool, and I did it in real life. So the best tripods for Earthwave, when we actually do get it, would be Weakness Detection, Juggernaut, and a personal choice between Reckless Rush and Reckless Herbal Medicine. Man, I love Google Translate. But in easier terms, 222 is safe and 221 is for movement. So it's better on like higher mobility fights and actually helps you get in front of the boss more often. And in my opinion, if you want to rock it on the Rage Hammer build just because you like the look of the move more, it just actually looks amazing. You can drop Seismic Hammer for it. I still think Seismic might be a little more damage. I'm going to have to do a lot of testing when we actually get it in NA. So if you want to try a new move, this one's definitely cool with an insane animation update. And you can see it looks absolutely fabulous. There's also going to be an update to Terror Break that makes it a lot faster, and the animation looks a lot cleaner, and all the other animations start looking a lot better, including Perfect Swing. The problem is we don't have that move yet, or the rest of the patch, like I said before, so having the entire class balance patch get left out of the Western Clown update was genuine disappointment. But what else was the dynamic duo amazing X Smilegate gonna do with 3 full months actually work? Stop making me laugh. The Destroyer King might drop his hammer on your cute little head, and the last thing I want to do is hurt your beautiful little Makokos. Because even though we didn't get the new ability or the balance patch, I unlocked a secret new move. And while you guys were out here using Inna-to-Cheeks mechanics, I'm out here using the Claysthetics side reel, the Destroyer King's perfect bonk. And yeah, that's right, I cheated, and I perfect bonked the cloud to death. Do something about it. Actually, no, don't do anything about it. Sit right there, and I'll show you how to do it yourself with the perfect Rage Hammer build. Now my Destroyer is set up with the best possible 5x3 that you can currently have as of the Cuckoo update that launched in NA and EU, and the best two, no matter what engravings, that you can never replace are Rage Hammer and Supercharge. Just look at Bonk with Supercharge, and now look at Bonk without Supercharge. Its quality of life is way too good, so just make sure you run those two no matter what. Then after that, obviously Grudge, because you're a tanky beast anyway, so there's no negative effect to actually having Grudge, and it's kind of troll if you just don't use it as a Destroyer. Then you obviously want to take Master Brawler, because you always want to be on the head attack anyways for the extra damage and crit chance. After that, you can freely go between Barricade and Curse Adult. Both are about the same just because of the way attack power does scale and all the buffs you get, so both extremely viable options and are just as good as each other. And the 3 budget options I have listed are basically if Destroyer is your alt and you kind of just don't want to pay for an amazing 5x3, but you down to settle for whatever. And I would just replace that Curse Adult or Barricade with Adrenaline. And in the process of using Adrenaline, you would actually go a heavier spec build and drop 15% of your crit chance, because the amount of percentage damage you gain from spec can actually get pretty ridiculous because of how good the scaling is for your purple moves. And if you were to run Raid Captain or Stabilized Status, it would just be because you're on an extreme budget and just really want that cheap 5th. But I don't personally think you should build your character like that unless it's an alt and you don't care about it. You just want that 5x3, like I said. But if you are going to be raiding in a serious environment, the main 5x3 I listed is probably the best. Again, you can switch Curse Adult or Barricade. Both are fine. And if you budget with Adrenaline, it is annoying to min-max with to keep the buff up the entire time, but if you do go that route, you can technically keep the buff up with just Heavy Crush, so it's not actually the worst. And obviously this text guide pretty much has everything else you need to set your character up with, but if you're a new person picking up Destroyer, head attack is on every skill, which is the same thing as back attack basically, just from the front. So it's that increased damage and crit chance, which is why you will also run the entropy set. And until the Western version gets the updated version of gravity training, I don't really want to do a video about it because I don't know what other changes we're going to get in between then. So we'll have to see what happens, which really does suck because the KR update actually made gravity training an insanely viable build that's super strong and basically just makes you an unkillable shielded bonking machine. And don't get it twisted here. Clown is awesome. It's a really fun raid, but it is genuinely disappointing about how the Western regions are being handled. Not getting the class balance patch or the tripod update with the Clown release really missed the mark. Like if we would have got both of those, it would have been so insanely hype, and there's no reason that we don't have them, especially when we've had it before with Vulcan. They had 3 months to get it together, and we didn't even get a whisper of anything between that Vicus and the Clown update. And it's a really long time to be getting that stuff done, especially when they haven't even sorted out the bots yet. It really just makes me feel like they're not doing anything at all. But on top of that, having to see the EU homies in the Zerk Gang Discord genuinely upset about the server merges being the same day as the patch, which I don't blame you. That was ridiculously dumb. It could have been any other day, any other week. It didn't have to be on raid day, and cutting up a progression day on a new raid release day is just a insanely good way to kill the hype off the raid. So I do feel bad for the EU homies because Wes is all in this together, and anyone who's still playing genuinely loves the game at this stage. So seeing it get mismanaged like this, well, it kind of just looks like this, honestly. And at this stage, I basically just have to say that it's a skill diff. So that's enough whining, and we're going to go over some tips to help you destroy the Clown as a bonky boy. So in Gate 1, because you're pretty immobile, try and save your dash for when you really need it. And when there's like a match check, basically just try and dash towards it. It's going to help you save your mental. You do have time, but getting there early is just a mental savior. Biggest suggestion is just take your time to see the symbols, especially if you have Spade or Heart. They can look the same, especially the first couple times you do the fight. So just make sure that you pay extra attention to the symbols and you won't really have any problems. And if the boss is animation locked, just kind of chill, do your normal DPS rotation from the front when possible. But you can usually DPS from the sides and then move a skill like Perfect Swing or something and move towards the front of the boss for the end of the animation just to get the extra head attacks in. That's what I noticed the best way to do DPS was. And one thing that helped me a lot was to save Earth Eater for when I wasn't sure about what he was going to do next. And because it's ranged, it helps you get a lot of extra damage off when you need it. And that's going to be pretty consistent through all 3 gates, as if you save Earth Eater for when you're thinking he's going to teleport away from you or do some movement. It's actually going to help you get some extra damage off or help you eliminate like an extra ad or piece from the fight. So other than that, just make sure you don't bonk the big shieldy boy as it reflects damage and one-shots you. And during that stagger, just drop your Earth Eater in full swing on it, and you can basically almost solo the stagger check by yourself. Then for the card thing, where you have to cut the cards into people when he drops the box on the ground, if you don't have access to the Destroyer King's perfect bonk, which you probably don't, that's like a me exclusive, but in spirit, if you scream my name really loud, I probably will show up. That is factual. So if you don't or can't do that because somebody will yell at you for screaming my name, then you just use Inna so you don't have to care about it. And if you notice one guy's still like CC'd at the end of it, like sometimes you cast Inna late, some guy's still locked in, you just push your Z button, you'll be able to eat the whole thing. Like I would save your Z specifically for this part of the fight. Just in case something happens, because if you live through this part, I mean, it's basically over, right? So as for Gate 2, just play slow and steady, nice and methodical. You'll be just fine. And because a lot of your moves can be turned, just chill. Just try not to ever be looking at the big clown. That way you don't get Medusa'd. And after your first couple of clears, you'll understand it a bit better and exactly know what to look for. My genuine advice is just never animation lock yourself looking towards the big clown, and you'll be just fine most of the time. And again, the small boy jumps around a lot, so Earth Eater bonking him when he jumps away helps a ton. And if you save your Z button for the spitting face that pulses with the red stuff that everyone in is through, it'll help you take an extra 2 to 3 hits if you're not sure about it, or you just don't really care and you just want to mess it up anyways, and you can just full W key it. As for G3, Speed Flag helps a ton, and you should run it as a consumable. It cheeses the fight pretty heavily for Destroyer. Just for running across the room in general, like when you have to do the stagger check during the Iron Maiden, that helps a lot. And then when you have to kite the sniper scopes, that helps too. And if you're lacking range DPS here, you could use Earth Eater one-shot the flamethrowers and the balls pretty reliably. And again, the flamethrower has to have its armor removed. But because its range is just long enough, you can take these out with like no real problem. So if you do lack range DPS in the group, you can just save your Earth Eater to deal with most of the mechanics that that ranged DPS player would usually deal with, so it doesn't really end up being that big of a deal. And I've said this a couple of times, but playing methodically in Gate 3, like there's a lot happening on your screen that's flashing, but it's actually not that fast. So because your skills are very slow, if you take that extra time to like think about what he's actually doing, you can get your skills off without getting hit a lot, and then you won't gain as much meter. But if you full W key, you're going to gain a ton of meter, and if your group isn't up to check, you're going to gain a lot of stacks on the boss, and then it's going to make it even harder for you in the long run. So again, playing methodically here will go a very long way. And I personally use this Reddit thread. Who honestly would have thought Mobalytics of all things would end up having like a really good text guide sheet that I was actually like pretty clean to scroll through. Honestly, I really like this stuff. Just keeping that mental refresher for you. Just open this on your other screen, or like if you don't have two screens on your phone or whatever, being able to have like a cheat sheet open that like while you're learning the fight or something, just to have the ability to see what's happening at the different intervals, knowing which consumables to use, like all this stuff is really valuable. It helps keep your mind refreshed so that way you don't make as many mistakes, and it helps your progression just go a lot smoother. So I wasn't expecting this at all from Mobalytics, but I guess they've done it for the last couple of raids, and this is honestly really great. And it actually breaks everything down with GIFs. So it was kind of cool, and this helped me a lot. So hopefully it helps you out too. I think it's genuinely something that you should just take advantage of, because I know a lot of people have goldfish brain like I do. So watching a 20-minute Cackle Sadon video just isn't happening. And like I said, it's perfect for refreshing your mind if you do get confused or a little lost. And I have all this stuff linked in the useful channel in the Zerker Gang community Discord, where we're always trying to build ourselves up so that we can be ahead of the curve on any game that we are playing and be the best together. So if you're of that mindset, we'll always welcome you with open arms. And also, thank you to the patrons.